so you already know we're at TCS right now. So we're going to go over just some of the parts because Ty's going to talk about it over here real quick. So some of the stuff I want to talk about, you've seen the intercooler piping before, but my thing is these axles and the shafts here. That is a big thing because for a long time you had to buy them used. There's no other choice, right? So are these 100% OEM replacements, or what are these?
Design-wise, they are OEM replacements. The inner axle cage is a little beefier than the OEM axles. That's a problem with the factory axles.
I actually forgot about it. You remember you telling me that because I remember doing burnouts, and I remember making a video on it, and you literally texted me and said, don't do too many of those, Ryan. I'm like, I thought these transmissions are beefy. He's like, yeah, yes. Nothing wrong with that. It's the axle cages. And I started reading up and going, yeah. I didn't know that was a problem.
Yeah. So the axle cage was a problem, and in previous years you would have to buy an upgraded axle cage. So we kind of designed an axle that already had the upgraded cage. And we also make an axle that is compatible with the factory non-turbo rear hub. Okay. So if you have a non-turbo car and you're swapping in a turbo transmission, previously you would have to replace the whole hub to be able to fit the turbo axle. So now we have a swap axle where the outer spline goes right into the non-turbo.
Bolt in, bolt out, makes it easy.
Yep.
See, that's the kind of stuff that's nice. And again, guys, you already know about some of the strut bars and stuff he has, downpipes. How long have you been in business now? How long has this been going on?
I started TCS in 2007.
Wow.
And then I kind of started taking it serious about maybe 2010. And yeah, just kind of grew from there.
Yeah, because the amount of cars we saw outside already, I know how many cars you go through. But let's kind of show some of the parts you guys have out here, because I know you have a bunch of other stuff too. I want to show them some of the exhaust and stuff you guys have, and then maybe some of the shop cars here, because the 2GR car you guys just saw is pretty darn clean. Yeah. So let's go look at some of that. All right. So let's go over some of the parts that you have in here, because this is what makes you guys special too, for the fact that your exhausts are a big deal. I remember when they were out, then they were discontinued, everyone kept going, make some more, and you waited. So let's go in here and show the guys what you got in here. So go ahead, Ty, show me what you got in here.
So a lot of almost every part that we make has came out of necessity.
Yeah.
We don't really sell many parts that we don't use on an everyday basis. So a lot of the stuff we sell, such as, throttle cables, we sell throttle cables for almost every different engine.
You literally see here
that you might need with or without cruise control. We modify water necks for pretty much any engine that would go into the MR2.
Wiring harnesses, everything in here.
Yeah, so pretty much anything that we have needed started out with us making one by hand, and over time, you kind of feel the need to have it mass produced, so you're not taking all day.
For sure. You're sitting down there for you to get things out, you have to have it mass produced, because it gets to the point it becomes tedious, and it doesn't, not the risk, but the time putting is not worth the reward you get in the end. It's very it's labor intensive.
Yes, almost we sell intercooler pipe kits for,
look at all this, guys,
for Gen 2 engines, Gen 3, Gen 4, Gen 5, pretty much any engine that you put into an MR2 chassis we make. And every single one of them at one point was made by hand.
Wow.
When I was on a much smaller scale.
Yeah.
And even in downpipes, everything like that, air intake kits, used to all be made by hand. And as the demand increased, you just can't keep up with making every part by hand.
No, and look at all this, guys. And the one thing we were talking about there too that was really cool is these carrier bearings. So that's something that fails on the cars, or is it just an issue?
No, it's when we started selling axles, we would get people that would ask. That's the bracket that holds the long stub shaft.
Okay.
And you used to be able to buy it from Toyota, so a lot of guys would buy a set of axles from us, and then they also wanted to replace that part, and that got to a point where you couldn't buy it from Toyota anymore, so we found a need for that and had those mass produced, and kind of makes it to where somebody can buy an entire set of axle stubs, carrier bearing, comes with the bolts and gaskets and everything to kind of refresh everything if they wanted to.
And see, for someone like me, that's something I would want. So getting it fresh out there, it is a big deal. And again, guys, he's got everything. It's just nice to see, it's pretty well organized. You have everything here. So I don't know how many times I've been told, oh yeah, we have it in stock, and you order it and they go, well, Yeah, but not in stock here because I know how it goes. A lot of these guys are small and they just say like, well, we get it from another distributor and we got to wait for them. And they said they did, but they really didn't. Yep. When you say you really have it in stock, you truly have it in stock.
Yep.
So when someone drops off a build, it's here, it's ready to go, and you get it done pretty quick.
Yep.
And that's kind of what I wanted to segment this into, is kind of talk about the car outside and the whole 2GR thing, because people are gonna ask like, why a V6? And I kind of want to show the car outside, or not outside, but the one you have in the dyno, and kind of go over what all goes into that and why you're going that route. Again, guys, you saw this on the dyno. It made 295, and this is just a bone stock 2GR V6, which literally is Camry, Sienna, Lotus. I mean, it came in like 20 some cars or vehicles, and still to this day, right? It's not like it's a discontinued engine.
No, I think today the 2GR, most of them are direct injected.
Okay.
But the actual engine is the same principle. But yeah, it's you can get it in anything. I tell people, if you want to sound fancy, you could say you have a Lotus engine in here, and if you want to sound cheap, you could say you got a Sienna engine in here. But it's the same. It's the same
concept.
Yep.
So now everyone's going to ask, they're going to want to know cost, and they're also going to want to know why this over 3SGT, why not the engine originally came in it, and why you've been going down this path. Because I know years ago you would have said, Ryan, do a Gen 5, do Gen 4, and this we're talking 4 or 5 years ago. But now this seems to be the go-to, and I see more and more, and I kind of want people to understand why they're going that route, or why you wanted to. Yeah,
so the 2GR, a couple years ago, we weren't doing too many of them. I think mainly because of the cost. The sticker shock gets you, because there's a lot that goes into putting this engine in the car.
Sure.
But over the past couple years, all of the JDM engines, the cost has gone up. The engines are 3 times the cost. So sourcing good JDM engines has been hard. We still do them here and there, but the 2GR has kind of taken over, as I tell customers, with how the rate is going on JDM engines. Maybe in 2 or 3 or 5 years, maybe you can't even find a replacement part.
Sure.
I hate to say that, but that kind of comes into play where you're putting an engine that's still used, that's in the United States. You don't have to get a part from Japan.
Sure.
You don't have to buy it from any MR2 specialty shop that imports them from Japan. You can get replacement parts anywhere.
Yep.
And the 2GR, we only have one package, so there's not. With the turbo engines, you can upgrade the clutch, you can upgrade the boost controller, you can do all kinds of things. It's one price. The only option is having the valve covers powder coated.
And I saw the AC. That's another little thing. But that's, basic.
Power-wise, whether you buy no options or all the options, they make this power.
Yep.
It's all of the stuff that we do is out of necessity.
Yeah.
We upgrade the headers and the Y pipe and the exhaust, the custom tune, the air intake. All of that stuff pretty much has to be done to put it in the car. So there's no, it's kind of good and bad. We get customers that say, what if I want more horsepower? And I say, well, this is it. It's great drop in, 300 horsepower, and it's a blast. Yeah.
And again, I was very standoffish about this. I really wanted that turbo noise, and I know how I am, but the fact that I have less, the 3SGT is a great engine, but at the same time, there's a lot of stuff that's a nuance about it, and I like this. I don't have to deal with the turbo. It's a newer engine. It just turns on, it runs, it drives, and I just took it around the block there, and I was like, holy cow! It's drive-by-wire, which is really nice too. I want to make sure people understand that. So the cable, again, when you have something like that and running it back for a throttle cable and stuff, you don't have to deal with that anymore. It just it simplifies things in a lot of ways, in my opinion, and I just think it's the way to go. Yeah, it really is.
I tell customers that I think in 5 years, this might be the only engine you could put in, unless you're taking an engine and completely rebuilding it.
Yep.
But being able to just drop it in and go, it's great. And we don't do any modifications to the car that are irreversible. You know, it's not like an old engine swap where you're cutting and grinding and welding. It's everything.
It's a Bolden affair.
Yeah, other than the air intake tube, I feel like you could take that into a dealership and say this is how it came, and they would believe it.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, it does fit in there well. It's not like it's so cramped. I mean, you can get your hands around it. I mean, you guys can see. I can see the ground through here. I mean, it's a V6, but it's a very compact package. I mean, it's pretty impressive. Yeah. Now, what's in this car here? Is this S54 or is this an E150?
This is an S54. So this was a factory non-turbo MR2.
Okay.
And you know, we've done hundreds of engine swaps with the S54. I think they kind of get a bad name online. People, one or two guys blow them up, and then it becomes, you know, oh, you do a swap with the non-turbo transmission, it's not going to last. But we've done hundreds of them, and oddly enough, I think I've had 3 times as many broken E153s, just because I think their entire life they've been
beat on hard.
They've been beat on pretty hard, and that's kind of what that engine has taken a lot more power over its whole life.
Sure.
The S54 has shorter gearing. I mean, it's a blast to drive around town.
Yeah.
You know, the only downside I say to them is because of the shorter gearing. At highway speeds, you're at a higher RPM, but I mean, this car for the last 30 years has been at that same RPM. It just seems louder because you have a bigger engine and exhaust. But they've been driving that same RPM for 30 years. It just seems a little louder now.
I mean, I just think this is the way to go. Is there anything else you want to talk about here today, Ty? I mean, I think we kind of went over the meat and potatoes. I mean, parts, who you are, and the engine swaps. Again, guys, I'll link down the website below. You guys, if you're in the MR2 world, you already know who Ty and TCS is, you know who Chris is, and the guys, what they do here. So thank you again, man. I really appreciate this, and I'm looking forward to the car.
No problem.